My name is Peter. I'm originally from Canada. I grew up in sort of a small city in Canada called London, Ontario. It's very blue collar, very kind of dead end kind of town that I hated. Grew up as a very angry teenager because this city I grew up in was one of those cities where people basically work until they die, and you don't really have any opportunity to do anything more than that. And it caused me to be this sort of angry, nihilistic, very pessimistic youth. And so that led me on to this, basically turned me into, I grew up as a very rebellious, shitty punk rock kid. I painted a lot of graffiti. I was always causing a lot of trouble, and I was sort of running around my little city kind of on a nowhere path. But I learned that I just wanted to do whatever made me happy. I learned at a very young age that you can do things in life that make you happy, and generally they're bad ideas. So I'm basically going to give you terrible advice, but for me it worked really well. So I spent the majority of my life making terrible decisions, or what people would think are terrible decisions. They're dangerous decisions. They're not safe decisions. They're what people would advise you against doing, but I did them all because I wanted to. And I've spent my whole life just basically doing whatever I wanted to do. And so you can see, this was essentially what I spent my whole high school year doing, or my whole high school life, was just vandalizing, causing trouble, doing whatever I wanted, having fun, living essentially for the moment and not really planning for anything greater than that. But in these actions, I really developed a love of art, a love of exploring, a love of basically cultivating experiences for myself. And this led me on to basically having fun, causing trouble, but it led me into a path that has really been an amazing life for me so far. I went to school, I went to university and studied illustration, because actually that was one of the few times I thought I'd made a safe decision, because I figured if I want to be an artist, illustration is a good way to make art but still get a job. So I was going to school, I was learning, I was still not really planning for the future, and I started making these sort of larger murals, really putting a lot more effort into life, and I started to realize I was really enjoying it. And as I continued on, I kept still making these bad decisions, but starting to enjoy it a lot more. And as I went on doing this, I discovered that there was more to life than just painting graffiti, which is a very sort of destructive lifestyle. It caused a lot of problems, and when I was finishing university, I did this piece, which I entered into an American illustration competition, which in the United States is one of the most prestigious illustration awards there is, and I won. Didn't win the whole thing, but I won something. I can't remember exactly what, but this made me realize that I wanted to take a different path in life again. So I had been painting graffiti for about 10 years at that point. I was getting in trouble, I was getting hurt. I kind of looked around. My friends that I painted with were dirtbags and drug addicts, and I could see this was sort of a finite life. And I decided at that moment, when I was graduating university, that I wanted to make a change again. So right around that time was when the mortgage crisis happened in the US, and things were very bleak in North America. So I decided with my then girlfriend, now wife, that we would just kind of move to Hong Kong. And I didn't know anyone here. I had been here once on vacation. I liked it. But I figured, why not? Might as well just go and see what happens. I thought maybe I'd teach English, or who knows. I had no plan. I just sold everything I owned, and I moved here. And shortly after getting here, I started doing, I didn't have a studio, so I abandoned all the oil painting I used to do, and I started I bought some inks and paper, and I started exploring with that, and I started making these urban architectural illustrations. And they started becoming quite successful quite early on, which was nice. It was very positive for me. I really enjoyed doing it for a while. And so I did this for about a year and a half after living here. And it started going really well. I started making a lot of money. I started getting a lot of interviews. I was in TV and magazines and all this kind of stuff all the time. And it was really nice. And I really enjoyed doing it, but there was nothing really to it. It was simple, it was pretty, it was decorative. They were very easy to sell, very approachable for people. I started to feel quite empty again. I didn't feel like I wasn't happy with what I was doing because there was nothing really to it other than a pretty picture. And I was doing really well. Like this was a project I did for American Express Centurion Card. I was getting a lot of these big jobs. I was able to leapfrog through my career early on, like fresh out of university, in a way that I never even thought possible. But I still felt very unfulfilled. And I made this decision. I had been mentoring with another artist in Hong Kong named Simon Birch, and he basically approached me one day and he said, you have two options in your life right now. I was still young, I was maybe 26. He said, you can continue doing these, which are safe, easy, you'll make money, you'll be successful, you'll be happy, but they're very plain and you can only get to a certain point. He said, you'll hit a glass ceiling at some point in your life where you can never get any higher. And if you go about this, if you do this for too long, you will never be able to break out of it because this will be who you are and you won't be able to change. Or you can abandon all that. You can abandon this life that you've built for yourself and start over, start from scratch and really dig deeper and try to figure out who you are, what you want to do. So that's basically what I did. And it was a crazy decision, but I stopped doing everything that I used to do. I started trying to figure out what I wanted, more ways to explore. I was doing murals still. I was trying to figure out how to get to this destination, but I went through a very difficult period of abandoning all the work that I had done. I burned all my bridges. I alienated all my clients. I alienated all my collectors. I alienated my gallery. So it was a very bad decision, but it was the best decision I ever made in my life. And I went through years of just making artwork that was unusable, stuff I would just throw in the garbage. I was just painting stuff, trying to figure out what was lost in the woods, and I just couldn't find my way out. And I was still doing just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, but not really having much success. And then this sort of took me in this direction. I was still working. I found that I was still doing these sort of urban landscapes, but still trying to figure out exactly what my voice was. And I started combining them with machines and heavy industry and ancient empires and stuff. But it still wasn't right. This is a detailed version of the bigger one. And even these were this was still me not going too extreme, still trying to keep the safe path. And I just basically snapped. I had like not a nervous breakdown, but I totally collapsed. Was in a very dark place, couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do. And then through that darkness brought me onto an amazing path, because once I just let go of everything, I was able to really figure out what I wanted to do. And that led me I started really reading a lot. I grew up in a very proudly Scandinavian family, and my mom had always instilled all these ideas in me, and I started really researching my family heritage, my people's heritage. Something about living in Hong Kong and being totally isolated from all of my cultural surroundings really allowed me sort of a sense of clarity. I was able to look back on my life and look back on who I was sort of from an outside perspective for the first time. And it gave me this ability to really sort of learn about myself. And I started down sort of this path of doing these more spiritual and mystical pieces. But I was still not quite sure what I wanted to do. I was still learning, and it journey was very exciting. And I started to really figure out that, and around this time too, I was working with my wife, who is a feng shui master. And we started really getting deep into mysticism and not but religion, but spirituality and the universe and physics. And I started to really be happy for the first time. And I was still painting these really big murals. And it started to go well. Finally, after I spent about 2 or 3 years making absolutely no money, desperately struggling to just even make ends meet, and coming from, I had just been making a ton of money with my older work, and it was a very interesting period in my life. And I finally started to do well, and I started to really embrace what it is that I really wanted to do. And I started painting these huge pieces and really exploring space and contrast and form and shape, as well as deeper, more spiritual, mystical beliefs that I had. And it really started going very well for me, and I was very, very happy. And now, it's weird, I'm doing this talk in a very strange part of my life still, because I'm still not there. I still feel like I have a long way to go before I find my end destination. But there's finally a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm still lost in the woods, but I've found the path, at least. And it's a very exciting time for me. It's the first time ever that I've actually been, not happy, but feel like I'm doing something right. And for me growing up, having never felt like I fit in, having always been an outsider or a misfit or a troublemaker, or having never really known what I wanted to do, this is the first time where I've ever actually been in a place where I feel like I'm in control, or at least I know that I will be in control in the future. And this piece was the most recent large piece that I did. It's quite big. It's much bigger than this, much bigger than the photo is. And this is sort of the culmination of my work up to this point. And it's finally got me back to that point where I was even before I abandoned all my work, and even beyond that. And I'm finally taking it more seriously, taking my life seriously, and having come from this upbringing that I had, and to finally be where I am now, I feel very happy. And I just want to basically say that every decision I've made in my life has been the wrong decision on paper, but has worked out for me in the best possible way. And I want to try to encourage people to follow their passion, follow their dream more, because especially in a city like Hong Kong, there's a lot of pressure to do what's right, to listen to your parents, listen to society, listen to the government, listen to what you're told to do. And I want to try to encourage people here to not do that, to just do what they want, to actually follow their passion and follow their dream. Because if you do, you can really achieve amazing things.